team event, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, all battling out, trying to get themselves to the top 8, and that was the 3 that walked away with a bunch of points, the trophy, the money, and everything else. A few team events coming up in the future of NRG, so make sure you stick around when we start going through them. But at the minute, looks like Alex on the right of your screen is taking the mulligan down to 5.
Oh, 5 cards, not very many, Will. But, as we talked about, this Cephalid breakfast deck, even on 5 cards, really only needs 2 cards to win the game on the spot. So for those of you watching at home who may not have seen the combo before, it is Cephalid Illusionist plus Shuko. Illusionist is a card that says whenever you becomes the target of a spell or ability, you mill yourself for, I believe it's 3 cards. And then Shuko is an artifact that equips for 0 mana. So you can continuously equip the Illusionist over and over again, milling your entire library. That sets up milling over Narcomoeba, which comes back from the graveyard, alongside Dread Return for, you guessed it, Thassa's Oracle.
Always happens that way. I'm actually looking at over on the other side, the Rakdos Reanimator list. How sort of ways have they got to disrupt this? A lot of hand disruption, 4 griefs as a Thoughtseize in here. How does this sort of pan out in this, especially when your opponent's mulliganing down to 5?
Yeah, Dominic, like you said, does have a ton of ways to kind of pick apart the Alex hand, the griefs, alongside. There's only 1 copy of Thoughtseize, but 4 Unmask as well. Now, interesting to start off the game, Dominic kept 7 cards and didn't play anything on turn 1, which leads me to believe there is very likely an Entomb that's going to be cast here. The Reanimator deck really wants to put a large creature into the graveyard. Could be Archon of Cruelty, could be Atraxa, and also Griselbrand. Wants to put one of those into the graveyard and then use a reanimation spell like Reanimate, Animate Dead, or Exhume to put it onto the battlefield. And, like we said, keeping 7 card hands and not having anything like a Dark Ritual for fast mana to be able to do it on turn 1, I'd be pretty surprised if there wasn't an Entomb here.
Also, can we just point out that basic? That is one of my favorite basic swamps of all time. I think that's the Mirage art. It literally looks like a swamp. It's so beautiful. As I think we're just passing the turn back. Was that? Or was that?
No,
Still in our main phase?
We fetched into turn. I guess I called myself out. There was no Entomb for Dominic, so I guess I don't know anything. We're going to start with a Grief here, pitching a Reanimate. Wants to get a look at the hand. Maybe there's something like, an Orb's Chant in response, Will. This is not a card that we typically see every time. It's a kicker card. Maybe we can get it pulled up on screen here. But it says kicker for a white, 1 white instant, and target player cannot play spells this turn. We pay the kicker, creatures can't attack. So Dominic is actually going to be cut off of casting any spells for the rest of this turn.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I've never seen that card before in my life. I was like, oh, so it's like Silence. No, that's got a bit of upside to Silence on it. Love to see it. There it is on the screen for you all at home. If you're in the same boat as me, never seen this before. Quite a good one. Why are we firing it off now instead of potentially in the upkeep?
So, well, the nice thing about there's not a creature in the graveyard, right? So if Dominic say leads the turn of something like Thoughtseize myself or Unmask myself or an Entomb, Alec can respond to that and then cast the Orm's Chant before the creature gets put into the graveyard and a reanimation spell is put on the stack. So it's almost like you're kind of sort of getting a 2-for-1 where the silence is being cast in response to a spell that Dominic was likely trying to set up for a potential reanimate that turn. You're getting that, and you're kind of getting the time walk aspect as well.
I guess it's in the deck as like more of a protection thing, right? For Alex, when you want to go off on the combo, not sort of like I guess almost a reactive card there, as we saw it kind of being cast to kind of turn off the combo on the other side. Normally it's for protection. In that instant, we use kind of the other side of it, almost like the Vengevine. Vasta. What am I thinking of? What's the Vines of Vastwood?
Vines of Vastwood?
Thank you. Vines of Vastwood. You know how it's got the alternate
the infect
wording.
player in you.
It's late at night for me, okay? Give me something. As we're going to see, this mask is going to be cast here, ditching the Archon, and then it looks like we're going to try and reanimate the Archon.
We actually unmasked ourselves. So we went Unmask, pitch Archon of Cruelty, target myself, which normally not a line you see with discard spells. Usually they want to go ahead and clear the way. But this specific card, given that you can discard your own large creature, puts it in the graveyard, prime spot for a card like Animate Dead.
Obviously, we all know what Archon does if that manages to hit the battlefield. Is there any sort of counter magic? Looking at that, there is 4 Force of Me's in the deck, but doesn't look like one's been found. So it is going to come back onto the battlefield. Triggers are going to happen. That means they're going to sacrifice a creature or a planeswalker. Don't have any of them. They're going to lose 3 life. We're going to gain 3 life, and then we're going to get to draw a card, and they're going to be discarding a card. So this is going to be interesting how we want to go down here, especially being on a mold of 5 for Alex.
Yep, and Alec does have 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares to be able to, I would say cleanly answer the Archon, but it's not really clean because you're already down a card and Dominic got the draw card off of it. So, obviously Alec does really want to try and find that Swords to Plowshares, or otherwise you're just going to lose to the Archon if it gets to attack multiple times. But is going to be down a bunch of cards in the exchange and already, on a multi-5, going to be down a lot of resources here.
Chat is pointing out that the unmasked does mean the hand has to be revealed, and it wasn't revealed there. So I don't know if we can get anywhere down to the table, or if it's gone too far, because obviously the Archon has drawn a card as well. So we're going to see if we can get word down there, see if we can get a judge to kind of clear that up for you all at home. These mistakes do happen at time to time, especially when you're kind of excited that you get to go off with your combo. We kind of do this cool line where you get to look at your own hand, etc.
Yeah. It's kind of strange too, because if you look at the wording on the original version of Unmask, it says look at target player's hand and choose a card from it. But I believe that was updated to target player reveals their hand. So yeah, we see if we can get a judge down there to kind of just get that corrected. I'm not sure what the fix would be, but yeah, the Dominic does have to reveal the hand, and it looks like the judge is intervening right now to see exactly what the fix is going to be.
And this is why we have judges at events, right? Like there's always been this like kind of stigma that people don't like calling judges, or maybe you're scared to call a judge, or it's not really your sort of thing. You don't like shouting randomly "judge" at the top of your voice. You don't have to do that. You can just raise your hand. Judges will come to you. But if you ever question anything that's happening in the game, you don't understand it, it's a foreign language card, etc. You don't know a ruling or an interaction. This is why judges are there. They're literally there to help the game maintain the board state. Never be scared to try and ask a judge, what's going on. They might not give you the answer you want to hear. That's happened to me a few times. I think someone's going to have it one way and it doesn't. I'm like, well, now I look stupid, but they're there to maintain board state. So we're going to see what the conclusion of this is. Because remember, the Archon has drawn a card, but we've got a judge we can see down there on the table going through this.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's maybe a situation where you reveal one of them at random, because one of them would be the card that was drawn off of the Archon. Not exactly sure what the fix would be. We're going to go ahead and come back to the booth here while the judges, the players go ahead and sort that out.
Well, it gives me a good spot to remind everybody what's happened this weekend. We started with 172 players this weekend. We've bowed it out, and now 8 of them are trying to get into that last top 8. Can only be 8, but there's multiple of them. There's a lot of X and 1s. There's a chance the next one doesn't even get in. The breakers and the math, it's all going crazy at the minute. We couldn't work it out before the game, so we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way. We're going to wait until this round's over, and we'll find who is in the top 8. We'll obviously make sure we give that to you as we then start going through the matches, find out the good matchups. That's the ones we're going to bring to you. So there'll be 3 more rounds after this round for you all here. So if you haven't hit the follow button, make sure you do hit the follow button. If you like this live magic, this paper magic, this is the channel for it. You need to hit that like button, because then you're never going to miss a thing. Well, we've got a bit of time in this game as well. I suppose we can talk about the future events that are coming up, and maybe we can get those slides up on the screen. Here's the first one: Detroit, August 12th to 13th. On the Saturday, we've got a 10K Modern. Everybody loves Modern, let's be honest. And then on the Sunday, we've got a 5K Pioneer Trial. Let me get my facts up. 2 seconds. Oh, we're already over it. I don't think the production team said.
Skip it over the will facts.
Detroit, the city that also ranked first in the nation for potato chip consumption per capita, just so everyone's aware. Okay, Indianapolis. On the Saturday, we're going to have a Pioneer 10K and a Team of Trios event on the Sunday. That's going to happen October 14th and 15th. And my facts for that one is Elvis Presley's very last performance was in Indianapolis in 1977, 3 months before his death. And then going to the last venue that we're going to be going to, Madison, November 25th and 26th. That's Thanksgiving for you all over in America. On the Saturday, you're going to have yourselves a 10K Modern Showdown. And on the Sunday, it will be a 5K Pioneer. I don't know if I've got my last fact for this is also where the CrossFit Games is held, and it's been held there every year since 2017. You're welcome, Devon. That's my little facts, ladies and gentlemen. I did a little bit of research yesterday. Some of those places I've never heard of before. I've never been to them. I thought I'd research and give you guys the facts. So if I'm learning, you're learning with me.
We need to get hashtag Will Hall facts trending on Twitter. I don't know if anybody in chat can we get that movement started. We got to do hashtag Will Hall facts.
I'm not full of them, let's be honest. I had to do my research, but I like putting a bit of homework in for you all at home. Give me some facts. Maybe people didn't know about that. Potato chips. Obviously, we call them crisps in the UK. You guys, I don't know where you get potato chips from. Chips to me are like what you call fries. There's a whole language barrier here. I'm trying my best, trying to give it all to you people at home. And I imagine most people from my sort of neck of the woods, everyone's asleep right now. Let's be honest. It's just the beautiful Americans over there. I do love being stateside. I think you guys do a lot better than we do at times, mainly the food. I love the food over in America. What's I'm going to talk about it. What's your favorite food of choice? What's your go-to? What's your go-to snack? What are you going to have for dinner tonight? This is one for you as well, chat. Let us know in the stream.
I mean, I'm a big fan of chicken marsala. I don't know about you, Will, but
What is that?
love me a good Italian place. It's come on, you can't ask me that question.
What is that?
Marsala wine. It's like chicken, and then they use marsala wine to make the sauce with it. It's really good.
Or like, if it's not fish and chips, it's not real food, right? That's the way we're going stereotypical here. If you don't like fish and chips, the correct answer was fish and chips, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be honest. Anyone going on? What do I like when I go to America? What's my favorite too? I got into iced coffees in America randomly. You can thank one of our friends for that later on. But what do I like? I love the chicken wings in America. I think you guys do chicken wings really good.
Yeah,
especially
KFC.
like the spicy ones. No, not that sort of stuff. Come on, I don't like good wings, but I can order like 50 of them at a time and just sit there. Also, you guys do go like, you don't have to finish your food. You give us boxes to take it home in. That's
True.
not a thing in the UK. We don't do
Really?
that. There's no take your stuff home away things. It's you eat it at your table or it goes in the bin. There's no take your scraps with you. I do love that. Also, this thing that blows people's minds if they've not been to the UK. We don't have refillable drinks. It's very rare you'll go somewhere and it's got free refillable soft drinks. You got to pay for your drinks every single time, which is pretty crazy. But
just go up to the fountain and just keep refilling it. No, you never do that.
We do in one place, and technically that's my favorite restaurant in the UK. It's called Nando's. You might have heard of it. It's known for being pretty cheeky. I just took Gavin actually from Wizards of the Coast. There was the last time I went. You know, little brag there for me, but it's kind of my thing. I love a bit of Nando's. Any Nando's fans in chat? Anyone know what that is?
I've never been. I've heard of it, but I've never been.
If you come to the UK, I'll buy you one. It's kind of my thing. Right. When we go to these big events in the UK, I try and take as many people as I can to these chicken restaurants. Shout out to Nando's. Obviously, the production team's probably going crazy. They're like, why is this British guy talking about chicken on our stream? But we got to kill some time while we get this judge call sorted. But okay, I've been told that we could talk about new cards instead of chicken, basically.
I was enjoying the chicken conversation, though.
Is there any chicken cards that we can get on the screen, ladies and gentlemen? Let me know in chat. Let's see if we can test our production team. New cards. Let's go. Let's be professional. Let's get out of this Nando's.
Well,
sort of
I mean, I guess
Bowmaster. Let's start with that one, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that we can.
Oh, chicken egg! Love it. Congrats. Yes. Well done. Well done, the production team. That is awesome. That needs I need them. I need that card. That is my goal now. I need to collect as many of these as I possibly can. But let's go over to.
Okay.
Why have I started? I've created a monster.
This is all your fault, Will.
I'll take it all. I'm happy to take the hit here. Well, let's talk about Orcish Bowmaster, right? Like an actual real card that we are going to see this weekend. Potentially, we're going to see a lot of it in this top 8. It's kind of the hype card for Legacy. One Ring's obviously been spoken about quite a lot, but we'll start with Bowmaster. How powerful this card has been, and also that we've seen so far up to now. Really powerful 2-drop, flash threat, brings 2 threats with it, has upside if my opponent starts drawing extra cards, which, you know, in Legacy, there's some good cantrips, let's say.
Yeah, the combination of early threat, has flash, you can respond to brainstorm, grows bigger if you cast in response to your brainstorm, so it's an actual real threat. Like if your opponent brainstorms, you cast Bowmaster, you now have a 4/4 and a 1/1. Even if they answer your 1/1, you're still clocking in with the 4/4. So the fact that it's like a massive threat by itself and is also kind of like a Punisher card, it's just everything you could possibly ask for in 2 bodies, 1 card, 2 mana, flash, just everything about the card is so good.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, obviously, popular streamer, everyone knows who you are, everyone watches your channel. Any cards that aren't the big 3 halfling, Ring and Bowmaster, any other cards from this new Lord of the Rings set stood out to you and you're like sort of testing, grinding, playing, Dono decks, and say, anything kind of gone like, oh, actually, this card's probably got a bit of potential?
Well, one card is Fourth Aeroligus, which is one that we've talked about earlier. Going back to the match here, it does look like we've resolved the judge issue. I'm guessing both cards were just revealed.
Yeah, it's revealed both.
Yep. Yeah, not too much of a looks like deviation. Okay, yeah, revealed the hand of the opponent. That was the fix, and that does make sense.
Yeah, it's not giving away too much information. We kind of, Alex knows what's going on the other side of the battlefield, and just now we've got full perfect knowledge of what it is and what we need to be playing around. And are we doing this again in the upkeep?
Yeah, so this time we're actually going to kick Orm's Chant. So remember, the 1 mana half of it says target player can't pay spells this turn. But like you said, there's a slight upside to silence where if you kick it, you can't attack this turn. So the Archon of Cruelty not going to be able to attack and get another card out of Alec's hand. Now, still going to need to find more of a permanent answer, but it does the job for the time being.
Okay, got you. So I think we're down to like what, a last card in hand here. We're just going to fetch up. I think I'm like board states is quite hard when you can't hear the players and what they're going through and what they're talking about. I think we're at end step. We're fetching here because obviously upkeep, fetch, silence, so to speak, can't attack. No other cards are played. So end of turn, we're fetching, and now we're going to go to our turn and draw a card. Bam! There it is. What cards are we looking for now?
Well, if Alec only has one card in hand, it does play a land, so I was going to say just not able to set up the combo. But as we mentioned earlier, there is a 2-card infinite combo in Alec's deck list, which is the Cephalid Illusionist plus Shuko. So if Alec had a copy of that, maybe rip the other half of the combo, we could have just seen a win right there for Alec, easy peasy. Does not able to find the combo, going to go ahead and play a land. From here on out, given that the last card is likely going to get discarded, really needs to find a copy of Swords to Plowshares to be able to answer this Archon. There's also 2 Teferi Time Ravelers. That would be a good start, being able to bounce the Archon, keep the Teferi in play. So really is looking for one of those answers to this Archon.
And that was an end of turn Entomb, finding an Atraxa, hitting that in the graveyard. If we manage to get that one back out of it, that's going to kind of restock our hand. But first, we're going to start off the turn with an attack with this Archon. Trigger. We're going to lose 3 life, gain 3 life, discard a card, draw a card, and no creatures or planeswalkers to be sacrificed. So it looks like we're just getting rid of this basic planes that we had left in our hand. Hit another card into our grip, and I think that was a Reanimate off the top. It looked like a white bordered card to me. Real good target, that Atraxa.
Yeah, Animate Dead. We just searched for the Atraxa with the Entomb end of turn. Atraxa is going to hit the battlefield, draw a bunch of cards here for Dominic. And the nice thing about Atraxa in the Reanimate deck is usually you can find kind of the re-combo. If you assume the combo being, Reanimate spell plus way to put a creature in the graveyard, you could say take a sorcery in the form of Reanimate, an instant in the form of Entomb, and there you go. You just have another big creature lined up for the next go at it. And as we see, there it is, Exhume and Entomb being picked off of both off of the Atraxa alongside Orcish Bowmaster. That's another threat, even if the Archon and the Atraxa somehow get dealt with to help clean up the game for Dominic.
Yeah, it's cool to see Atraxa sort of making the way into this. Obviously, it used to be Griselbrand back in the day, and now Atraxa is kind of the go-to because it's got so many lines of text on it. It is the 7/7 Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, Life Linker. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, 10 cards, and you get to pick one of each type into your hand, and then shuffle and put them the rest at the bottom. This card does a lot in a lot of formats. It's kind of like the big fatty to go to these days, right? When you start trying to cheat cards into play.
Yeah. Now, we do want to talk about the presence of Karakas in Alec's deck list, because typically with a card like Atraxa or Griselbrand, the issue there is if your opponent has Karakas, that gets bounced to your hand, it's really hard to get an additional threat. Archon of Cruelty is actually kind of, oddly enough, sort of the go-to nowadays because of the presence of Karakas in a lot of these decks. So, we see Dominic go for the Archon first, and then once the Archon gets a little bit of value, is going for the Atraxa second. And then looks like an Exhume is on the stack. Now, Alec does get to get a creature back. I'm not sure what's in the graveyard.
I don't think there are any, hence, and even if it was, it would go back to the graveyard, right? Because of the Archon trigger entering the battlefield. But another card into hand, another 3 points of damage coming across, dropping Alex down to 3. No cards in hand. It's going to be a big top deck. And no, we're going to take that. We're going to hand it over to the fact that we're going to be going game down in this one here, but we do get to go to our sideboards now, see some of the cool cards that we can bring in. And I imagine there's some big houses in Legacy that can come in for this matchup. Every deck seems to have some sort of surgical or rest in peace type effect. So we will start with Alex here as we get the full 75 on the screen for you. After all that, all I can see is a couple of surgicals. Is there anything else I'm missing here that we should be bringing in?
So I just want to say, you said 75. There's actually 95 in this deck list, Will. Remember, this is a Yorion deck list. We're not used to seeing Yorion in Modern. But yeah, this is a really interesting take on the Cephalid breakfast deck. There's a lot of cool stuff going on here. We talked about during the break the step throughs as a way to find the Cephalid illusionist alongside like a cheeky little Snapcaster mage. But as far as sideboarding is concerned, wants to go towards the Flusterstorms. Those can help fight on the stack. Maybe can help fight over Dark Ritual or Entomb or any of the Reanimate spells. Although it can't fight over Animate Dead, so I have to keep that in mind. Past that, definitely, as you mentioned, the surgical extractions, those are slam dunks. Past the Flusters and the surgicals, probably nothing else. The red cards aren't doing a ton here. There's no blue cards in Dominic's deck list. So besides those 4, not a ton else.
I'm looking at this deck list and it is crazy. There's a GT and stuff flowing around in this deck as well. But anyway, let's move across to the Reanimate. Let's see what they got going on here. This is the 75. I'll get that one correct now. Anything you like bringing in here?
So from Dominic's side of things, typically with Reanimator, you kind of assume that your opponent's going to have some kind of haymaker, graveyard hate spell. Could be Rest in Peace. Could be, well, I guess can't be Rest in Peace in this scenario because of the presence of the graveyard combo. But like something like a Leyline of the Void or anything along those lines. So in the dark, if Dominic doesn't know what type of graveyard hate that Alec has access to, might want to go towards something like Wear Tear or Serenity to be able to blow those up. It's kind of awkward because as from what Dominic saw, he really didn't see a lot of combo pieces, right? We didn't see any of the Illusionists or the Shukos. There was a couple of Orm's Chance cast, there was a Brainstorm cast, but Dominic doesn't really have a ton of information as to what's going on Alec's side of things. So it's really tough to say. Might want to go toward the additional threats in the form of Sheoldred and Orcish Bowmaster if Dominic is worried about the presence of heavy graveyard hate. That's typically what these Reanimator decks tend to do. If Dominic is aware that the Cephalid Illusionist is a part of the equation, wants to go towards the Surgicals most likely, or maybe the Voidwalkers as well. So Dominic can do a bunch of different things depending on what he is putting Alec on.
Yeah, both players are 6 and 1. Remember, so there's a good chance that they kind of have an idea what they're on. They may be sat opposite each other, next to each other in the top tables throughout this tournament. Obviously, one of the stories is our Rakdos player, Dominic, I believe, started the round 0-1. Started this tournament 0-1, decided didn't want to lose, fought all the way to here, and is now one game away from being able to potentially lock themselves into a top 8. We'll see how the tiebreakers kind of filter out, but it looks like both players are just finishing up cycling here. But we're going to see Alex on the play. Does play draw affect this matchup dramatically? Is it like, obviously everyone kind of feels like being on the play is always kind of some sort of an advantage here, but is it like an absolute house in this one, or is it's kind of okay? It's just, it's a nice to have more than a requirement.
The Reanimator deck is a lot better on the play. When you kind of have the initiative, no pun intended, to be able to start the turn off with a discard spell, see if the coast is clear. If you can, go for a turn 1 Reanimate spell. When you're on the draw, you give your opponent one more turn to set up, maybe cast a cantrip, which finds a piece of graveyard hate that wasn't in the opening hand. So the play draw definitely matters a ton. The presence of Force of Will in Alec's deck does give Alec a chance in the draws, alongside those Surgicals that we talked about. But yeah, both players just, again, Dominic doesn't necessarily know that this is a combo deck, so might not be aware of how fast he needs to go. If Alec, let's say, for example, just has Shuko and Cephalid Illusionist in his opening hand, and Dominic maybe keeps a slower hand that's good against the pile of Force of Wills, that's no good against, a turn 2 or a turn 3 combo from Alec's side.
Okay, looks like we're just going to fetch up and then straight past the turn back. No spells being cast straight away. Here comes a Badland on the other side of the battlefield. And you said, very explosive deck. Kind of wants to be doing things on turn 1. We didn't see that in game number 1. Are we going to see anything here after the cut of the deck? Be interesting to see. Here comes...
Yeah, we're fetching on turn 1, which leads me to believe we're probably casting a cantrip here. There are, there's 4 Ponders. Okay, we're going to main phase Brainstorm. Interesting. Usually you don't see...
Well, this is end of turn, right?
My apologies,
Yeah.
end of turn. My apologies. Okay,
what we're saying is there's nothing from Dominic. Dominic's not doing anything turn number 1. He's got access to things that obviously like looting. I can see a Grief in hand. Plus, I think I see Grief and an Animate Dead. Are we... because we know the matchup waiting to potentially turn 2 to cast this for so my opponent goes a card deeper, or are we just going to Entomb end the turn and pick some big fatty into our graveyard? In this instance, what's like the go-to normally for Reanimate here? Is it just Atraxa?
Kind of depends if you're worried about the Caracas, because Alec has revealed a Yorion. I think what was going through Dominic's mind initially was Death and Taxes, but you've seen Tundra and Underground Sea, so you can kind of maybe assume that is off the table. There is, as we talked about, that copy of Caracas in Alec's deck. So if Dominic doesn't want to get a legendary creature, maybe wants to go towards something like an Archon of Cruelty, or if we want to go super all in, again, Sire of Insanity, we're going to go for Griselbrand here. That is arguably the best one even if there's a removal spell like a Caracas or Swords to Plowshares, because you can still just draw a whole bunch of cards in response to that.
Yeah, you can almost overdraw, right? Because at the end of the turn, what you can do, you can discard them. They're going to go to the graveyard. That's exactly where you want them for future turns. So we will be passing the turn back, I think. It's just a little bit of shuffling. Obviously, Yorion decks and shuffling go together like peanut butter and jelly. Always happening. And draw for the turn. Do we have a second land drop?
Not only do the Yorion decks play 20 more cards, usually when they're adding 20 cards, that 15 of those are just there, just adding more fetch lands to the deck. So, well, I guess in the instance of Death and Taxes, not so much, but we'll have to see what Dominic wants to go for. So, with the Griselbrand in the graveyard, you did mention the Grief. Maybe wants to go for something like Grief, take a peek and see what Alec is working with, which we are going to start with that. See if the coast is clear to maybe go for a reanimation spell on the Griselbrand.
Exiling the Bowmaster.
We'll have to see if there's a response here from Alec. Maybe, a Force of Will, maybe wants the Surgical Extraction in response. Also, maybe Orm's Chant that we saw at game 1. We are going to fire off the Surgical here.
Interesting.
Now, when we looked at the deck list, we did mention, so a lot of Reanimator decks in the past were playing 4 copies of Griselbrand, but these threats have kind of diversified quite a bit more. So there's 2 Griselbrand, I believe it was 3 Archon of Cruelty, 2 Griselbrand, 2 Atraxa, and 1 Sire of Insanity. So the Surgical Extraction, maybe not as backbreaking as it normally would have been prior to the printing of the cards like Archon and Atraxa.
I think that's Reanimator in hand, right? Obviously, no second land drop we can see, but this Grief is still in the stack, so potentially we could just reanimate this Grief, right, and get like a kind of double Thoughtseize effect.
Well, we could actually go Unmask, pitch Bowmaster, target ourself, put Atraxa in the graveyard, and then reanimate the Atraxa.
Oh my god, I love that play more. I will.
So that is something that Dominic definitely wants to consider, depending on what is in Alec's hand. But with the Grief on the stack, you could even see Dominic just take a Force of Will and then be able to just fire that off.
I like that. I like your line a lot better than my line. Let's put it that way. Let's see if they also see it. I imagine they do. You don't get yourself to 6-1 just at the whim of turning up, being able to get yourself here, get yourself in contention, having one just on top of it, play some awesome magic. It looks like we're fixing a sleeve right now. A lot of pressure.
Has been through it.
It's double sleeve. Get the air pocket out. We can talk you through all this. I'm sure there's YouTube tutorial videos on how to properly sleeve your deck and double sleeve it and triple sleeve it, which a lot of these decks and legacies seem to have a lot of value tagged to the cards, as this surgical is eventually going to resolve.
Yeah, really, really curious to see what is in Alec's hand. We talked about there's a decent number of things that could be able to stop the reanimate plan, unmask myself, reanimate plan on Atraxa. Cards like Orm's Chant in response to be able to stop Dominic from casting additional spells. Obviously, Force of Will. So Swords to Plowshares. We'll have to see how Alec wants to navigate this.
We do have a Swords in hand, but obviously that's probably the card that gets taken. It's the one we want more than anything, because it can deal with the Atraxa if it did come back for any reason. But we're kind of forced to fire it off now before the hand is revealed.
Yeah, just I don't know if maybe Dominic is floating mana, but the Badlands, there should not be tapped. I don't believe we tapped the Badlands for mana, because we just went ahead. We started the turn with Grief, and I don't believe we tapped the Badlands. So I don't know if maybe Dominic is just, with the intention of knowing he's going to cast the Reanimate at some point this turn. But yeah, that Badlands should not be tapped.
Yeah, they've worked it out now. No, I was re-sleeving my card. I have not tapped it for mana. The Grief is still in the stack. We now get to take one of these cards here. It looks like we're definitely targeting them, and we definitely can't target ourselves. I'm thinking the Unmask thing that you were talking about now. What card here do you like taking? Anything problematic, or is it just they're kind of all meh in this situation, especially when I'm going to start trying to bring back this Atraxa?
It's tough. I mean, you don't, to be completely honest with you, from Dominic's side of thing, you don't really care about any of these cards. I guess the Shuko is the scariest card, given the presence of, the Cephalid Illusionist. Alec does have land 3. So if Alec drew the Cephalid Illusionist, you could just see land, Shuko, Illusionist, mill my deck, go from there. So I think a pretty heads up take here from Dominic to prevent the combo. And here we go. Unmask myself, reanimate the Atraxa.
I'm going to go. The odds on us being able to play a second land here might be a little bit higher now that this comes down. Here's another Atraxa, Petal, Wear and Tear. That's a couple of fetches. That's an Entomb, another fetch, and a Ritual, Unmask, and an Archon. A lot of choices here. Let's see what we want to go with. And we can have one of each type.
Yeah. Creature, you get either Archon or Atraxa. Lotus Petal, land. Instant, you probably want to take the Entomb, I'm guessing. But we'll have to see. We're going to go for the Ritual instead. And then Sorcery, the Unmasked, that's the only option, I believe. Yeah, it's the only Sorcery there. Not a bad one.
No, it's pretty good. Draw 5. What's going to be the creature we take here, though? Because we haven't got a creature yet. Deciding between Atraxa and the Archon. Kind of could mix it up, right? We could get the Archon, potentially have a way of getting that into the graveyard so we can play around a Caracas if it gets drawn.
Yeah, and the fact that you already have the Archon, the Atraxa in play, leads me to believe we're likely going for the Archon here.
So, yeah, that looks like they're agreeing. These are all going to get shuffled in, go to the bottom of our deck. And then we still got a land drop for the turn. Let's put it that way. Potentially, we've got actually 4 mana this turn.
We've not played a land this turn. I totally forgot about that.
But everything face up. We all know, everybody knows it, especially at home, what is in the grip. Especially, we can play a lot of it. Here comes our land.
Interesting that Dominic chose to pitch the Animate Dead instead of the Bowmaster because, maybe this is kind of like a hindsight 2020 thing, but if we hadn't pitched the Animate Dead, we actually could have went Unmask, pitch Dark Ritual, myself, take the Archon, and then use the Petal and the land for turn to be able to cast that Animate Dead.
We're just going to start ripping the hand apart a little bit more, take that Bowmaster out of the hand, and let them take a turn. I have this big 7/7 on the battlefield. You can go.
Yeah, and as we Alec's deck is not the best at really top decking. This is at its heart, it is a combo deck. We're trying to assemble Shuka plus Cephalid Illusionist, and given that Alec doesn't really have anything left over except the Cabal Therapy, if you look at Alec's deck list, as far as 1-card top decks that would be good here, there's not really a ton. I mean, I guess Urza Saga kind of, but you really don't have that kind of time. Something like maybe a Brainstorm to find multiple cards. That's probably where it has to start, to be honest.
Remember, this is kind of an underdog story. Dominic did start today at 0-1 and has decided not to lose since. Already a game up in this matchup, and I would say maybe advantage to the left as we get the companion gets put to hand for Alex.
No, I figured it out. Well, you know what card we're looking for? We're looking for Caracas.
Okay.
That's a start.
There's no way to toot it that way. Are we just blind drawing it in an 80-card deck?
I mean, when you put it like that, sure.
Cool.
But that just adds more suspense to it, right?
We've seen a lot of top decks this weekend to great effect. And this is why we love real paper magic, right? You get that dramatic fairy tale stuff can happen as we get to draw for the turn. 7U. I'm going to gain 7. And I'm not even going to tap it. It's got vigilance. It's got lifelink. It's got flying. Anything else we can do on turn? Nothing crazy. Nothing. We've had our crazy explosive early turns. Alex desperately trying to dig deep. He knows there's a Bowmaster in hand, so lethal is on the battlefield. Can we find some way to survive, or are we going to have to offer the handshake and kind of deal with the fact that we went 6-2, which is still in itself is a great record in any event, but that's not what these players are hoping for. They want to get that 7-1 record. They want to get themselves in contention for the top 8. And there's the handshake. Dominic takes it down. Fairy tale sort of thing for him, being 0-1, finishing the day 7-1. Potentially hasn't finished his day yet, though. Could have 3 more rounds in him, but we'll find that out shortly. I think we've got a bit of a backup match potentially, but I think we're going to come back to the booth first off while we try and get Dominic in for an interview, because that's a lot. It looked like not a lot happened, but a lot did happen, just not in a lot of turns, right? Is that what that is a quick rundown of what happened there, right? There wasn't a lot of turns happened, but a lot did happen in those turns.
Right, yeah. We see the presence of the free spells like Grief and things of that nature to be able to, we saw Grief and Unmask both in that single game. Being able to, the fact that you can unmask yourself is kind of like not only a protection spell to be able to go for your own combo, but as kind of a graveyard enabler if you draw the creature that can put it right in the graveyard. And is kind of like the story of that match was we talked about how Alec's deck is really trying to establish this 2-card combo, but when you're getting your hand ripped apart by Griefs and Unmasks and Archon of Cruelties, it's really hard to assemble a 2-card combo.
Yeah, exactly. But both decks also had Bowmasters. Remember, we spoke about this card before and how this is kind of the card for Legacy, the new toy, the new hotness that people are kind of picking up on, and we're seeing it to great effect. That wasn't really the matchup for it, right? But both players didn't cut them; they kept them in. It had a little bit of a. I suppose it'd be really nice in response to a Griselbrand draw 7. That'd be pretty cool to see. But we didn't manage to get to sit there. Looks like we've got them sitting down. Dominic, can you hear us?
I absolutely can. How you doing today?
We're good. How are you doing? Congratulations! You decided to start the day off with an 0-1 and didn't lose since. You managed to get yourself into top 8 contention. Fingers crossed. That little bit of sweat coming on now. But how does it feel?
I mean, it feels wonderful. Yeah, we had to play it out. The backup feature is 9th and 10th place. My opponent and I were 8th and 7th place. So it was definitely something that we had to play it out for. Yeah, and as you said, I lost round 1 today to a very competent Death and Taxes player because I forgot that Caracas was a card. So I just put a legend in play on turn 1, and they went Caracas bounce it. So I've learned a lot of lessons today.
Yeah, I was like, speaking of Death and Taxes, I was going to bring this up. You see your opponent. I don't know if you knew your opponent was playing, but you see they reveal Yorion, and that leads me to believe, at least in my mind, I would want to go towards Death and Taxes. And then you see all these like Tundras and Orange Chance Cast. Did you have any idea what was going on after game 1?
I did. It was just the people floating around at the top tables, and a lot of us are just talking and chatting, watching games. You can imagine my games don't take very long. So I had a lot of time of going around, watching other matches, seeing what's going on. And a lot can be revealed from a Tundra and a Shuko or anything like that.
I was actually talking about that, saying like, I feel like I've just watched a lot of Magic, but not a lot of turns. A lot was happening
Absolutely.
only in a couple of short turns like that. How does it, like, you're playing potentially for a top 8 slot, your opponent's mulligan to 5, and you've got things like Grief in your hand. Are you just sat there like, oh, baby, let's go. Let's go.
It truly is the best feeling, right? It's why I was drawn to playing this deck, is just having so much free interaction for what they have going on in your hand that you can play before you're comboing comes up incredibly throughout the entire day. Like, there's so many times where I know an opponent has 1 Force of Will, and if I start with one of those, like a Thoughtseize effect or any of the stuff that's a hand hate spells, that takes the 1. So then I'm clear for takeoff on A+B to put any of the combo reanimation and stuff in play. So not only do you have that feeling, but as they go down each time they're mulliganing and you kept a 7 that you know has an Unmask or a Grief or a Thoughtseize or combo of the 2, you feel really, really good. And it happened a couple of times today, right? Just anytime your opponent's mulliganing, you're almost only keeping hands that have that interaction anyways.
Yeah, one other thing that, kind of the talk of the town at this point is Orcish Bowmaster. That's a card that we've seen in quite a few different deck lists, and I personally have not seen it in the Reanimator deck list. How has that card been for you all day today?
It's been absolutely wonderful. I have to shout out, there was someone who had played at the last event that NRG hosted that I think didn't do the best. I think they were like 1-3 or 3-3, like somewhere in the low amounts. But I was looking at all the Reanimator decks after Raja had placed in the last event, because the only deck I want to play in Legacy is the Reanimator deck anyways. So it was good seeing someone do well, and then I was looking through the other lists, and I saw someone just shaving a Thoughtseize and shaving one of the threats that they have and playing 2 Bowmasters in the main. And a lot of people, you're still going to be playing against Ponder and Brainstorm and anything else in this format. And it just has come up a lot of times that you just are applying threat with a Bowmaster, either just onto or response to a Ponder or in response to a Brainstorm. They have to answer that, and then you're sitting with a reanimation package also in hand. So if they deal with threat number 1, well, that was just Bowmaster. Threat number 2 is A+B reanimation combo. And then if you look in the sideboard, there are 2 more Bowmasters, Dauthi Voidwalkers, and Sheoldred the Apocalypse, as opposed to playing a show and tell package that we had last night, and then we took out for this like mono black, like aggro, just interaction stuff. So now with the Bowmasters in the main, I can shave on some of the interaction, shave on Exhume or Animate Dead, like whatever feels like the worst spot, and then have like 10 to 12 just like aggressive black cards that they have to answer, pitches to Unmasked, pitches to Grief, and then still could just kill my opponent. So a lot of games have been putting a Bowmaster into play, attacking a little bit, playing a Dauthi, stealing spells with the Dauthi, reanimate Dauthi, bring it back, play Grief, reanimate Grief. And like your black plan is really, really good. And then on top of that, there's a reanimation plan. So you just shave a little bit here, a little bit there. You see them playing a lot of their hate for your reanimation spells, and you're looking at a hand of like Bowmaster, Dauthi, Sheoldred, and you're on a different plan than the plan that they thought you had. We even have the sorry to cut you off. We have the Underground Sea in the deck that I have actively searched for and played against opponents who like in the dark, so that they believe that we are playing show and tell in our sideboard. So that they board in such a way to bring in cards for show and tell, like any of your Pyros and Red Blasts, and then instead we're on mono black aggro post board.
I love that. That's like a whole explanation of everything that was going on in your whole 75 for this whole weekend. And fingers crossed it's got you to the top 8, because this is the good thing about your deck. It being so quick means we get to be more Magic. So chat's going to be happy about that. We're going to be happy about that. We're going to wish you congratulations. keep everything crossed to you, and hopefully we get to see you in that top 8, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much.
Appreciate it. Welcome. Okay, we're going to go back to the booth. If you just tune in, welcome. My name is Will Hall. That's Demo O'Donnell. We're bringing you round number 8. This is the pinnacle round of this tournament. Before we get to that top 8, we're going to see if we can get down to our Time Warp feature match. We're going to go straight down to it. Time Warp feature match. Again, these players are going to be X and 1 playing to see if they can try and get themselves in top 8. The left of your screen, Garrison, we've seen him already. It is Dimir Death Shadow, just because it's cut off a little bit there. It's not a different crazy sort of build. It's a Death Shadow that we've seen multiple times, but against Doomsday. Charlie on the right, Charles on the right of your screen. Devon, who do you think is favored in this? Who's going to give himself the best opportunity to get into that top 8?
It's just the chat meme at this point, Jameer Death Shadow. But anyways, as far as Death Shadow versus Doomsday, this is kind of an interesting matchup. The Death Shadow deck is very good at clocking the combo decks, being able to, deploy an early threat and kind of back that up with a bunch of permission, and that's exactly what Garrison's trying to do. My guess is that the Death Shadow deck is slightly ahead, but I think, this matchup is very close, and Charles is on the play. We're going to lead us off with a ponder here. I think I like the Death Shadow side of things.
Okay, interesting. We'll see how this pans out. Remember, both these players are not moving at super speed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is played back to you at 1.5 times speed, so we can get as much of this gameplay in as possible, so you can all look at this. But remember, if you like paper game Magic and you like this, you need to hit that follow button. This is the NRG series. We have 2 events over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Yesterday was a team event. That was Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy. So if you like any of these sort of formats, more of that's going to be happening on this channel, so make sure you stick around. As we see the non-traditional in Legacy, Fetch, Shockland come into play.
And Thoughtseize. This is the ideal start for Death Shadow. We take a look at a hand from Charles here. It's going to be 2 Brainstorms, a Thassa's Oracle, probably knows what's up now, Cabal Ritual, a Duress, and a Dark Ritual. I guess we could call this hand sort of Thoughtseize proof, where there's 2 Brainstorms, that's the best card in the hand, but you can't take the only copy of. There's 2 mana sources in the form of both Cabal and Dark Ritual. I guess the way to maybe pick apart the hand would be the Duress, but it really depends on what Garrison is looking at. And just to kind of clarify, as far as chat is, wondering, or people at home wondering what type of deck list Charles is playing, there are versions of Doomsday that actually play some like Murktide regions and more threats. There are no copies of those in Charles's deck list, so this is kind of the sort of all-in combo approach, as opposed to the tempo Doomsday's decks that you see sometimes as well.
Dude, it's a really cool card. I like watching this deck in action, seeing that, when they go for it, how they manipulate their deck, and then what piles they end up making at the end. What cards do they decide they need to be playing around, because they have access to things like caverns and stuff like that. What can my opponent be doing? As it looks like the namesake card of the deck was the one that was drawn for the turn. Doomsday, as you see at the top of the grip there.
Yeah, would have been good if we had that Dark Ritual, but that was taken from the Thoughtseize, and I have to imagine Garrison likely is going to take that copy of Doomsday. Yeah, doesn't want to, risk Charles drawing a land, because even though there's no threshold for the Cabal Ritual, if Charles drew a land, you could just see land, Cabal Ritual, Doomsday, and that could be put Garrison in a really tough spot. Charles is going to go ahead and brainstorm, really looking for some lands to be able to, just develop mana. Also, want to eventually find another copy of Doomsday, because that's kind of the namesake card. What we're trying to do is we're trying to Doomsday. I really hope you don't ask me what the pile is, Will, because I have no idea, but I know that it involves Thassa's Oracle in some fashion.
I was just about to say, what's the card we're digging for now? We've got all these brainstorms, cantrips. We're trying to find cards to make our hand better. What is the card? Is it we're just trying to find another Doomsday, 3 mana, cast it, hope it resolves? Or are we going to try and, get a lot of protection, magic, discard spells, see the coast is clear, then cast it when we know it's safe?
So in this particular situation, there is no threat from Charles. You know what that card is, Will?
Yeah, I do. That is a personal tutor.
There you go. Personal tutor. So for those of you at home, if we can get that up on the screen, but it is very similar to like Vampiric Tutor. It's a blue sorcery. Search your library for a sorcery, reveal it, put it on top, and then, or shuffle your library, then put it on top. So that is a way to find the Doomsday. That's going to go ahead and get on top of the library for Charles. And that's kind of what Charles is looking for. There's no pressure from Garrison. So Charles is not under any, doesn't necessarily have to go for it next turn, but if the brainstorm was good enough and we can go for it with protection up, then Charles is definitely going to be in the market for doing something like that.
So I guess we're looking over on Garrison's side, we're probably trying to find Wasteland, counter magic, that sort of stuff, kind of to take Charles off this potential Doomsday next turn if they decide to go for it.
Yeah, kind of wants to find a threat as well. Garrison
Yeah.
does have to something like a Death Shadow. We are at 11, so we do have the ability to play that. There's the Death Shadow.
There it
It's only
is.
going to be a 2/2 for now, but a fetch land could easily make that a 5/5. The one thing about Doomsday as well that you have to kind of realize is that Doomsday makes you pay half of your life total. So in this instance, Charles would pay half of the life total. That would bring Charles. Is it rounded up or down? Let me take a look at Doomsday. I think it's rounded up. It is
Okay,
rounded. Okay, so that would put Charles down to 10 if this Doomsday were to resolve, and then that would mean the Shadow would be a 2-turn clock. Not that Garrison would get 2 turns after the Doomsday resolves.
Well, we're starting off with a Dark Ritual. That's going to eat a daze. I think we're deciding if we want to pay that extra mana or not, because obviously double daze here would be able to stop it because we didn't play a potential land drop beforehand. We are going to pay it, and yep, double daze is going to stop that ritual. Now we've just got a Lonely Death Shadow on the battlefield, 2/2. Street Race going to cycle, grow it to a 4/4. We get to go 1 card deeper. We know there's a shock land in hand. Here it comes. Going to 7 life, making the Death Shadow a 6/6. Sorry.
That was a really interesting spot because that's a situation where Garrison knew about the Doomsday, and with the ritual being cast, you wonder if Charles is going to just fire off the Doomsday anyways. I guess you want to daze there. You want to daze the ritual because you're worried about a follow-up Lotus Petal after the ritual resolves, and then you won't be able to double daze because there would be 1 land on tap plus the petal. But yeah, it looks like Doomsday is going to resolve with 1 mana floating.
Guess what my next question is going to be?
What the pile is? Yeah, I'm out. I don't even know. Well, I could tell you it has Thassa's Oracle, but so it kind of depends on whether or not Charles has a cantrip. So if Charles has a way to draw a card, what you would want to do here is you would want to go like Thassa's Oracle, Lion's Eye Diamond, and then there's a card in Charles's deck called Edge of Autumn, which a lot of viewers may not know that card, but that card is basically allows you to cycle for free by sacrificing a land. So if you could say, put a couple of cyclers in the pile along with a Lion's Eye Diamond and the Thassa's Oracle, you could say, cycle, draw the Lion's Eye Diamond, cast that, cycle again, crack the diamond in response, cycle, then play the Thassa's Oracle. But it kind of depends on whether or not Charles has a way to draw a card left over in his hand.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a chance that maybe Cavern goes into this pile, Cavern of Soul, so makes the Thassa's Oracle uncounterable. But this is going to be the first time Charles has done this today. He's going to be done it multiple times, and this is the fascinating bit of this deck. I think is there's so many options to go with. There's the stereotypical, okay, right, that's the go-to 5. We know how that works. But what has my opponent got? What deck am I playing against? What sort of threats could they have? Could they have surgicals in the main? Am I playing around Force of Wills? Am I playing around more daze effects? And then this is where the kind of the mind games happen, and this is where it rewards you for knowing what your opponent's on.
Yeah, there is a deep analysis in Charles's deck as well. So that could be something where, and we're going to see Garrison go ahead and look through the deck list. We're actually putting it on camera. I can't look that, I can't think process information that fast, but I could look at the deck list to see what pile Charles has gone for. I don't know about you, Will, but I haven't seen the deep analysis in that pile. So, oh wait, was that the top card? It might have been the top card.
That
interesting
is. Do you know what's good about Magic? We're going to find out shortly, I'm sure.
True.
It's gonna either happen or it's not going to happen.
Okay, we just conceded. So we must have had Doomsday, but no way to draw a card. It was just hoping that that we would get one more turn.
Okay, cool. Well, let's see if we can get the deck list up on the screen. So this is the Doomsday deck for Charles. I imagine this is a combo deck, right? And we've spoken about it multiple times about combo decks. You don't want to dilute the main structure of this deck too much, as in you don't want to over sideboard really. But I'm sure there's, we have sideboards for a reason. Some cards in there are going to be bad, some cards are going to be better than others. What do you like bringing in?
So from Charles' side of things, wants to just try and buy a little bit of time. Doesn't have any removal spells in the sideboard, nothing like Fatal Push. So I don't have a ton of experience with the Doomsday deck. You might want to go towards something like Sheoldred. The thing about the Death Shadow deck is they do deal themselves a lot of damage. So just like a fast Sheoldred might be enough to just race them. So maybe wants to go towards something like that. Maybe a Duress to be able to take care of stuff like Force of Will, other opposing stuff that would normally stop Charles from going off.
Let's see if we can move across and have a look at what's going on over in Garrison's deck. Here's the Death Shadow deck. We've seen this already on camera, but maybe we're going to sideboard slightly differently here. What do you like bringing in?
So from Garrison's side of things, might want to go towards the Force Negations. Those are pretty good at countering Doomsday. Surgical Extraction is kind of a weird one because unless you put the Doomsday into the graveyard, it's not going to do a ton up until that happens. So maybe wants to go towards those, maybe doesn't, depending on how many cards that we want to cut. Past that, not really a ton here. So the Forces for sure, maybe the Surgicals, but past that, maybe the Null Rod as well, the Shut Off Blindside Diamond.
Oh, let's see how it pans out. Let's go back down to our time-shifted match, game number 2. Remember, it looks like Death Shadows managed to take down that game 1. So Charles is going to be on the play. Here comes a Duress. Okay, this is a good question. What's your Duress art of choice?
Old school. Well, we already had this conversation yesterday, Will. You know I'm an old school guy.
Okay, yeah, fair one. So what, the Urza Saga one? Is that?
Urza Saga, yeah.
Cool.
Well, my second favorite one is probably the one from the Strixhaven archive. I do like that one quite a bit.
Really?
Yeah, I like that one.
I'm not a fan of it. Not a fan. I like the Secret Lair League of Legends one. That's the art I go for currently.
That's good.
And it looks like Thoughtseize was taken from that dress, and we're going to start turning off with a Delver of Secrets. That's going to be able to apply pressure if it manages to flip. If not, just it'll be a lonely little 1/1.
Yeah, by the way, that Duress revealed 3 copies of Daze. So good luck resolving a spell, Charles.
Well, we're going to have islands on the battlefield for that to happen, but at least we know about them, right?
Here's the Delver. And this is perfect for Garrison, just wants to go turn 1 threat, back it up a Daze, back it up a Daze. Ooh, a Daze from Charles. That's a really nice one.
Can we just add the extra troll there? They made them go get the token, put it on play, and go for it, and go back and forth. But starting this sort of Daze fight here, and Delver does end up resolving.
Absolutely, definitely wants to fight here. Garrison knows what's in. Garrison knows that with the multiple copies of Dazes, just wants to put a clock onto the battlefield to be able to utilize those Dazes, kind of take the tempo aspect of. I know that's everybody's favorite word is the word tempo. Personal tutor here for Doomsday. There's a Wasteland in Garrison's hand. That Underground Sea looking like a pretty prime target for Wasteland.
Surgical flip the Delver there. Charles now knows that that is in the hand, not what he wants to see, especially if that Doomsday on top of the deck does end up getting counted and going to the graveyard. We can just strip them out of the deck. But this is what we spoke about with Legacy. It's knowing when to use what cards, how, etc. Here comes a Surgical by the looks of it. Not playing a land drop first, so potentially could end up getting dazed.
Yeah, interesting. There was a line here for Garrison where we could have actually Wastelanded the Underground Sea and then Surgicaled the Underground Sea. Which, to be completely honest with you, there's if you look at Charles's mana base, there's 4 seas, 1 island, 1 swamp, and 1 Cavern of Souls. So really, really cut off of mana if that were the case. We're actually going to go for the Personal Tutor instead. A bit of an interesting choice here. I might have wanted to go for the Wastelands, but either way, being able to shuffle the library after the Personal Tutor resolve, that's massive because you shuffle away the Doomsday.
That's what I was about to say. Is we think we're just taking a card. It's actually doing more than that. It's also shuffling away the Doomsday that's been put on top of the deck. But I really like that Wasteland play that you spoke about. That in itself seems backbreaking and would give us enough time for just this little Delver to be potentially end up doing lethal damage.
Yeah, and imagine if we had just Wastelanded it in Surgical, we would have got the Underground Sea out of Charles's hand too. So not only would have been a Stone Rain, but it also would have been another Stone Rain.
Great. This format's crazy, by the way. This format is literally crazy. And now here comes the Wasteland, taking them off it. I don't know what they're talking about, but it looks really interesting as we're going to draw a blank for the turn. Here comes a alternate art Ponder, I believe.
Yep, that is a Ponder. I'm not sure. I think that's a secret.
I think it's a
beautiful Ponder. Now I'm going to put you to the test. What's your preferred Ponder art?
Ooh, I like the Secret Lair one. It's kind of like an abstract art one. It's kind of crazy. It's like it literally is all over the place. It doesn't look like a Magic card, but I think that's my go-to. If I think I own like 2. I was gonna go for the playset. Brainstorms I own are the Japanese ones that were printed. I really like those. I think they look really really nice. As we're gonna play the fetch the turn, and then Wasteland's gonna take out another land here. Potentially, maybe that's why we didn't do the Wasteland Surgical threat as the Delver comes across and drops them down. I think this should be at 14 if the live titles get updated correctly.
That sounds
it's been 2 hits.
Yeah. 2 hits from the Delver. And this is kind of exactly how Garrison wants the game to be going. A little bit of tempo here, a little bit of tempo there, chunk in with the Delver every single turn while you're kind of, deploying your mana denial strategy, also holding up potential counter spells. We still know about, I'm pretty sure Garrison still has 2 Daces in hand from the opening duress from Charles. And here we go, Fireworks. We're going to start off with a Dark Ritual. And, okay, another Ritual. No Doomsday yet.
5 mana into a Sheoldred.
Oh.
Okay, let's have a look. What have we got in the main that can deal with this, if it's even in? Because I don't think, why would we be keeping Fatal Pushes in? Snuff Outs don't do anything to it. But then I suppose on the flip side, this Sheoldred will be doing damage to us, so it will be growing our Death Shadows. Interesting. And maybe this is the flip of the sideboard and how this game might end up resolving. As Sheoldred gets turned sideways, dropping Garrison down to 9.
Yeah, we weren't 100% certain if the Sheoldreds were going to come in, or the one Sheoldred, I guess I should say. That's a 1-of, by the way. But yeah, we weren't sure, or excuse me, 2 copies in Charles, 2 copies in Charles' sideboard. But yeah, looking really good here, able to kind of put the pressure onto Garrison. Garrison does have a lot of shock lands, and because the Death Shadow deck wants to deal self-damage, so the chip damage that you get from Sheoldred is just so massive, as we see a Delver chump blocking the Sheoldred.
This is crazy. But if we went for the Wasteland surgical play, we wouldn't even be able to cast this. We can't fetch a basic swamp off a Misty.
Yeah. I wonder if Garrison maybe just didn't consider that line, or maybe was thinking about something else with the surgical. But yeah, I think this game would have looked potentially a lot different. Now, Charles did have, I believe Charles did have a way to fight over the surgical if Garrison had gone for that line. So maybe, just a little bit of a different story. But yeah, tough, really interesting decision there from Garrison with the Wasteland turn.
Ooh, life totals updated. Garrison is at 4 life. That is 1 attack. But here comes a big Murktide. But we don't even have to attack. Over on Charles' side, you can just pass the turn twice. So.
Yeah, Charles could potentially offer the trade, but with Garrison at 4, no real reason to do that. Just pass, put Garrison at 2. You're not in danger of dying to the Murktide region.
It's interesting to see how we want to go about it. 3 cards in hand. I don't think we know any of them. I think we know about Force of Will in hand, right? Guess no. Pass a turn. You take another 2. Drop yourself down to 2. We need to find a removal spell, some description, if any are still in the deck, or a way to win this turn, which I don't see things like Team of Battle Rage in the deck or any red mana, so don't think we're doing it that way. That's if life totals are correct, we should be at 2, I think, which means this Death Shadow is not leap 1. Okay, right, okay. The out was they forget the trigger. I got you. Plays you out. So I love to see it, Garrison. We get to go to a game number 3 potentially, but welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are in round number 8. After this round, we will know exactly who is in that top 8, who is going to get to battle out to take down this tournament. 5K Legacy brought to you by the NRG Series. Doomwake, a lot's been going on so far this weekend. We get to a game number 3. I love game number 3 of Magic. Everyone knows this. I love commentating. I love watching Magic. And we're going to go straight down to it. Let's go. Let's do it. I mean, told them here it's ready to get there. Everything on the line for both these players. 6-1, 7-1 gives them the best possible chance to be in that top 8. Garrison on the play, starting off with an Underground Sea.
Yep, so Garrison is starting us off here. We'll see if there's maybe a Delver of Secrets. Going to go ahead and lead with a Ponder, sees a Brainstorm, I believe another Ponder, and a Death Shadow. Wonder if we want to keep those. The Death Shadow is a decent threat early on, but as far as the first couple of turns are concerned, not really able to deploy that. So maybe looking for something like a Delver of Secrets to kick the party off.
Yeah, we'll see how they want to keep moving about. Let's get a blind draw. Don't get a good look at what that is. Charles' turn. First turn, what we're going to do. How early can Doomsday go off?
I think technically turn 1. I'm not 100% sure. I know that you can go Ritual Doomsday on turn 1, but maybe you need a way to draw cards. Maybe it's turn 2. I'm sure somebody in chat will tell me. I know it's very easily turn 2. I'm not sure about turn 1, though.
Okay, interesting. I do love seeing that, powerful formats do absolutely crazy powerful things, but just a fetch land pass. Obviously, we've seen Wastelands coming from the other side of the deck, so it makes no sense to crack it early. We've seen that all weekend long from Legacy players, completely different format to what we're used to, where we also see fetches modern. And Charles is deciding how he wants to move about this. This is Time Warp Magic, remember, ladies and gentlemen. So the conclusion of this match has already happened. Someone out there knows, but we do not, just like you at home. So we're sat down, strapped down, ready to see who is going to be able to get themselves into that top 8. Who are we going to keep seeing later on in this tournament and try and advance themselves onto the leaderboard, get into that top 6, get themselves an invite to the championships at the end of the year, where it's going to be 25k, 16-player invite-only tournament with a Pro Tour invite on the line.
Looks like we're getting an Oracle text here. We're going to go ahead and play the Cavern of Souls. I think we were maybe just double checking on the creature type.
Yeah, we're asking what is Sheoldred's creature type? I bet you that is what was asked. What is Sheoldred's creature type? And I'm pretty sure it's
Phyrexian Praetor. So that would be, you know, if we're going to, oh man, imagine if this Dark Ritual resolves and we just tap the land to play Sheoldred.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's literally what is happening.
It might be.
Here comes the daze.
This will be wild. We're going to daze the Dark Ritual. So now if we pay with the Cavern, we only have 3 mana left over, which means we would not be able to cast the Sheoldred. We're actually going to force the daze. This is quite the stack, Will.
Okay, let's go. Let's go. Daze is getting carried. So we're going to fetch. We already knew it was on top. I love that. Are we now getting daze again?
The Ritual's still in the stack. My
daze
goodness.
Again. Oh, Charles is like, right, I'll pay the 1, sure. Okay, free black mana is going to float. Pass the turn. Rough.
So I wonder if that does mean that Charles has Sheoldred in hand, because yeah, it has to be, right? I didn't quite get a good look, but
I think I'm pretty sure that's the line I would be taking here. I think it's the only reason you're asking some sort of question about Cavern of Souls. We all know how that works. We just need to know. The only thing I need to know is what is the creature type, so I don't name the wrong one. Obviously, normally it's in there for when we put it on the stack with Fastest Oracle. We can name something like Wizard or Merfolk. So if our opponent thinks Counter Magic is going to be able to stop that coming down, they can think again. But in this instance, if we can get a Sheoldred down early, we know that can change the game. We know that there's a good chance we can't get it off the battlefield on the other side.
Imagine that whole sequence if Charles asked for the Oracle text for Sheoldred, played the Cavern named Praetor, Dark Ritual has the fight over the Dark Ritual, and then after the Dark Ritual finally resolves, just like, okay, I'll cast Doomsday.
It would be beautiful. I would love it.
That would be the greatest moment in history.
And I think we've got a Orcish Bowmaster in hand as we're going to play our second land drop again. Don't be confused, ladies and gentlemen, with the board states. I'm pretty sure we're on like turn 4 now, but a lot of daisies have been returning lands. Here comes Sheoldred, so we did guess it right. Cavern of Souls, obviously, remember naming either Predator or Phyrexian. I'm going to go with Phyrexian. That's what I'm going to go with because, you know, I'm a big Phyrexian fanboy anyway. And we're going to fetch. Here comes another way to do damage to ourselves with a Watery Grave. Fatal Push, targeting that. So it looks like they've been brought back in purposely for that target.
Yeah, Fatal Push, not normally a card that you'd want to keep in against Doomsday, but after Garrison saw the Sheoldred in the last game and easily just got destroyed by it, felt like we needed to re-sideboard, and that's, you know, one thing the players always need to consider is sideboard. People like to assume that sideboarding is kind of just like really cut and dry, but it really can change from game to game depending on what your opponent shows you, and, you know, Garrison just getting paid off for boarding in that Fatal Push.
Here comes a Surgical. Interesting what it's targeting. I imagine it's the Sheoldred. But, you know, we'll find out shortly, even if this does resolve or not. I think we've got the ability to fight over it if we want to. Brainstorm and, yes! Sign me up all day long. Bowmaster in response to Brainstorm. It's going to amass itself a nice little 1/1, but that is going to grow quite quickly as long as we remember to say trigger. Here it is on the screen for you all. This is obviously from the new Lord of the Rings set. A lot of talk's been behind this, the One Ring and the Halfling. This is the 1/1 flash. When it ends the battlefield, whenever an opponent draws a card, except for the first one they've drawn for the turn, they take 1 extra damage and you get to amass 1 extra orc. So this orc is going to grow to a 4/4. They're going to take an extra 3 damage to the face. And once all this clears up, all the Sheoldreds start coming out of the deck.
Yeah, what a crazy sequence there. You know, we saw the Cavern on the Sheoldred to be able to resolve that. Fatal Push, you know, to get that out of there. Surgical the Sheoldred to not have to worry about additional copies. And then the Bowmaster not only taking 3 damage out the Brainstorm, but also making a 4/4. Just, you know, this game has really, really turned around in a massive favor here for Garrison. And, you know, looks like Garrison in kind of the driver's seat as we, you know, with Charles at 14, Garrison's got 5 power. That's a 3-turn clock if my math checks out. And not a lot of help here. Can cast the Ponder, but that'll even grow the Bowmasters more.
Interesting. A lot's going on. So we're going to play a land drop for a turn. Yeah, we're going to get pony. Trigger. So we get to look at the top 3. Do we like any of them? What are we looking for? I'm guessing it's got to be Doomsday. I guess it's Doomsday, cast Doomsday.
Well,
hope we get another turn.
Doomsday is really awkward here because the Ponder's going to put you to 13, right? The Bowmaster token's going to be a 5/5. That's 5 + 1 is 6. Doomsday would actually put you down to 7, right? Yeah, so you'd go to 7, but maybe not sure if the trigger was missed off the Ponder.
No, I think Life Thoughtseize maybe haven't updated yet, but I suppose maybe the trigger is missed because the Unmask hasn't happened.
It would have been a 5/5,
yeah. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite Garrison here as he follows up with a Death Shadow. That is going to be a 4/4. So lethal on the battlefield. Can Charles get himself out of this?
Yeah, with Charles at 9, if there is a Doomsday and a cantrip, we'll have to see if there's some way for Charles to set up a pile here. We're just going to go Thassa's Oracle the natural way.
Blocker. Brainstorming response.
Fortunately for Charles, Thassa's Oracle does not draw a card. It just puts it on top of the library if there's something that Charles wants in the top 2 cards. But yeah, and honestly, if Garrison just has something like another Fatal Push, then you can just Fatal Push the Thassa's Oracle. That's lethal. But we'll have to see.
It's going to resolve. We get to scry 2. We can choose where we want one. I believe can both go to the bottom. It looks like they can. Both can go to the bottom. So we don't want either of them untapped. It's going to be on chump block duty. We're looking for a way to get that off the battlefield. Potentially one of these fatal pushes that we might have brought back in because of the threat of things like Sheoldred. Other than that, we could add another Orcish Bowmaster. I think that's kind of the cards we're looking for. I'm looking in the board. Is there anything we could have brought in out the board? There is a Sheoldred's Edict that could, I suppose, have come in. We'll see. We'll find out, especially pretty shortly as that resolves land for the turn, which can't go amiss. Fetch land here is kind of like a pump spell at times. It could be a giant growth if needs be, and then Null Rod to follow up the turn.
The other thing that we want to consider is even if there was a Doomsday into a cantrip, the Doomsday would put Charles to 2, and then the cantrip would almost be kill him. So that's going to be Garrison winning over Charles 2-1.
Congratulations to them, giving themselves the best possible chance. We're going to start going away. We're going to do the math. We're going to find out who is in that top 8. So while we do that, we'll be really, real quickly. I promise you all, make sure you stick around. And that's going to be it for round number 8. We'll see you all soon.